Okay, finally time for my Resident Evil 8 Village review, but on PS4 Pro, because I actually had started my playthrough already before I got the PS5, and I uh, also know that you can upload the clear data on Capcom servers from my PS4 Pro and then download the clear data on my PS5, you know, for the next playthrough. So my playthrough on PS4 doesn't really go to waste. So I can pick up, all the unlockables I got and whatnot. So yeah, that's why this is a PS4 Pro version review. And also, uh, yeah, this reviews comes this late because I was really, at first I was waiting for my PS5 and I was not willing to buy a PS4 version of the game because I already had pre-ordered the PS5 version. But then I got tired of waiting and I just thought about, okay, I'm going to get the PS4 Pro, on my PS4 Pro, the digital version of Resident Evil 8. I don't care, like, by that time I didn't know I will get the PS5 even this year, so. But then after a couple of weeks I actually got the PS5, but yeah. This is the PS4 Pro review. Uh, I mean the Resident Evil 8. No, not the console review. Hell no. PS4 Pro version of Resident Evil 8 Village. Yeah. So in general, let's start with the fact, well, my opinion, of course, that the game was even a little bit better than Resident Evil 7, which I loved very much. And mainly because the game has more variation. It, has more variation on locations, definitely enemies, especially enemies, because Resident Evil 7 didn't have that many type of enemies, and that was one of the biggest, cons of the game. So that's really been improved in here. So Resident Evil 8 definitely have much more variation on enemies, and also I really love the locations on Village. So, and of course this is going to be you know uh, I mean, there won't be any more any story spoilers, so this is a spoiler-free review. Definitely not going to touch on the specific things on the story, of course, but just, in general, the story was really good, but I wouldn't say, maybe not, I don't know. Maybe Resident Evil 7 had a little bit better story, but this definitely had a good story. And yeah, the game took me about a little bit more than 12 hours to complete. I completed it in normal difficulty. I think the difficulty was very balanced, very balanced. Some tougher enemies gave me a hard time, and also a couple of bosses gave me a little bit time, but nothing actually that I wasn't able to defeat. Uh, and yeah, and the graphics on the uh, PS4 Pro version, I play it with prioritizing the screen resolution. So I chose to play it with 4K and 30 frames per second, which was enough for me. Uh, the other choice would have been 1080p and 60 frames per second, but yeah, I chose the higher resolution. Uh, so the game, even on PS4 Pro, it looks absolutely stunning. I mean, it's even much better looking than Resident Evil 7, and of course it uses the familiar Resident Evil engine, RE engine. But yeah, the game looks awesome. Uh, very, very nice, especially the castle. The Dimitrescu castle looks absolutely stunning. But I also love the whole village area. It looked really good. And it also had, the guy, uh, as the game got further, there were, different times of day. So there was like at first it was like a day, then it was dusk, then it went to night, and that was quite. And it also changed, the feeling of the locations. I would say the village, of course, because that was pretty much, I would say, the main location of the game. And also, which makes this better than Resident Evil 7, is just the merchant, the Duke. It really changes the game. This feels more like Resident Evil 4. Of course, they took the merchant idea from that, and also the whole, upgrading your weapons and just collecting, jewels and treasures and selling those to merchant, to the Duke. They all were very familiar to Resident Evil 4 players, so that was already very familiar for me, uh, which really works and makes this much more interesting in a gameplay, you know, on gameplay things side of things. It's much more interesting when you actually can upgrade your weapons and yeah, unlike in the. Of course, I think were there some custom parts in Resident Evil 7 also? I can't remember, but yeah, this makes a big difference, and also which made a quite big difference to Resident Evil 4 merchant. He was just a merchant. There were, nothing really. He was not, connected to the story in any way. Of course, Duke wasn't that much, but he had many conversations with Ethan, asking him different things. Not going to go there because that would spoil a little bit of the story, but yeah. So it made the Duke much more, much more human than the merchant in Resident Evil 4, which I really liked. He was not just a merchant, but a guy who was actually interested about Ethan's journey through the game. And yeah, also the sounds in the game, the soundscape, it was very familiar, very much the same as in Resident Evil 7, which already, so by that I mean very good. You know, the of course there was minimal music here in Resident Evil 8, like in the Resident Evil 7, and that's okay. That's okay because these are, you know, much more modern Resident Evil games, whereas the original Resident Evils had a so different uh, feel to them, and I mean the music was very important to old school Resident Evils, but here, uh, of course, music is always important for me in games, but the minimal music in Resident Evil 7 and 8, I think it fits the games much better that it would have a full, you know, soundtrack of so many tracks like in the old Resident Evils. So yeah, about the locations. Well, there was this is going to be a, you know, this is not a story spoiler, but this will spoil some for some, because I'm going to name a few locations that they were, and of course the village itself, the main location. Then there was the castle, and then there was mines also, and couple of, you know, houses. I mean there was dozens of you know, little houses where you can just search for items, and yeah, I loved that. And also there was a factory. Maybe I'm now forgetting some locations. Also you can take a boat in some places, and you can, you know, fast travel to different, with the boat you can fast travel to different locations on the map pretty much. So the boat acts as a fast travel thing. And yeah, what else? About the scare factor of the game, I have read before I actually even played it that Capcom wanted to make this game less scary than Resident Evil 7 was, but I wouldn't say this was, for me, much less scary, because yeah, Resident Evil 7 was scary, but I think Village was as scary as 7 for me. I mean, not necessarily for everyone, but for me this was as scary as the 7 was. So I personally, I didn't really understand the saying that that this is not as scary as the 7 was. I don't know. Okay, this had much more action, which can of course affect the scare factor of the game, but I wouldn't say it was too actiony. You know, of course it had more action than Resident Evil 7, because it had much more you know, many more types of enemies, and also the quantity of enemies were were much larger than in Resident Evil 7, which pretty much only had, you know, besides the Baker family members, it had the mold people, and then there was bees and you know, what else pretty much? It doesn't, okay, quite many types of molds, mold enemies, but yeah, this had like, you know, the kind of werewolf people, the villagers, and also, uh, you know, the bigger beasties from the village, and also this had you know, some mechanical enemies also, which I don't want to spoil, but they were pretty cool, I would say. Actually, pretty awesome, those mechanical enemies. But yeah, this had so much more enemy variation, but I already told that, of course. So yeah, so all in all, I really enjoyed the game. It wasn't as long as I was expecting it to be. I think Resident Evil 7 was longer game. I can't remember how long it took me to play for the first time. I can't remember if it was something like 15 hours or something, but this was just a little bit over 12 hours. So I would say uh, it was as short as Resident Evil 3 remake. Yeah, I would say about, yeah, the longevity was about the same. Uh, so yeah, time for actual number for this review, and I would give this game a I would say 9 minus out of 10. So overall, very enjoyable game. Really enjoyed it. It improved in so many areas that Resident Evil 7 already was good on. So this improved on many areas, like more variation on enemies, more locations, you know, the merchant, the added merchant, uh, and yeah, I mean, just the, you know, the feeling of this game was very different than Resident Evil 7. Of course, the location was, you know, Louisiana swamps and, you know, redneck location, and here it was a mountain village and other locations near that mountain village. So it had very different feel to it, and of course that's a big plus, because of course I always expect from a new Resident Evil game to actually feel new also. So yeah, that's it. That's my review, and yeah, see you in the next one. But yeah, again, sorry about how long this took, this review, but yeah, I explained it, and yeah, finally, yeah, game has been reviewed, so that's the main point. So enough, and see you in the next one. Bye.